Hello there. I am Kaybe Angel, and this is Angelic Encounters. Roll for initiative. Good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. I am Kaybe Angel. I am a professional game master and an amateur VTuber. Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, does certainly hold the crown as the world's most popular role-playing game at the moment. But that doesn't mean that it's the best, or, more importantly, the best for you. If you were a game master and you like to homebrew D&D, nothing wrong with that, I do it myself all the time, but you've probably at least once been told to stop doing that, and try another system that already does what you want. Or perhaps you have tried to run D&D in ways contrary to the design goals of 5th edition, such as wanting something grittier, or wanting to add hit locations, or something low magic. In this series, Anatomy of an RPG, I'm going to be examining how the same scenario can play out differently in various systems. The goal of this is to share some new systems with potential game masters and players. In this first episode, we're going to be looking at how various systems handle a basic attack. In each game, we will assume a fantasy setting where a lone melee fighter type character encounters a goblin in a dungeon. If the system has rules relating to stealth or surprise, we will examine the possibilities there. Admittedly, all these games are ones that should involve a party of players. But in the interest of time, and in order to focus on how basic attacks happen, we're going to be looking at a simple one-on-one combat. In future episodes in this series, I hope that we will visit other topics such as casting a spell, aiding an ally, making ranged attacks, sneak attacks, flanking, etc. In today's episode, we are going to look at 4 systems. We will start with D&D 5e, as that is likely a system everyone watching this video is familiar with. It lets us set our default. Then we're going to look at Dungeon Crawl Classics, GURPS, which is a personal favorite of mine and I am admittedly biased in favor of, and Dungeon World, a Powered by the Apocalypse system. Check the timestamps in the description if you want to jump to a specific title. Now, let's get started. Hero McGoodguy is deep in the bowels of the earth, a torch in his left hand to light his way, and a sword drawn in his right to protect himself from whatever lurks in the darkness. There is a goblin somewhere in the dark of this burrow that has attacked the local villagers, and Hero McGoodguy is the only one brave enough to slay it. Up ahead, you see a wooden door on your right side. The hallway continues beyond it. What do you do? I creep up to the door, and I listen to what's on the other side. In D&D 5e, goblins have dark vision, while humans do not. As the GM has decided that the goblin is hiding in the dark, and that the wooden door is not tight enough in the frame to prevent light from seeping in, the GM decides that getting surprise against the goblin is not possible. The GM, however, does make a stealth check for the goblin. The goblin rolls a 4 on its d20, with the +6 bonus from its sheet. This is only a 10 and fails to beat Hero McGoodguy's passive perception of a 13. The Game Master says, "You hear something moving on the other side of the door, the pitter-patter of small feet on a stone floor, moving towards the left side of the room. Something is on the other side of the door, and it knows that you are there." The player decides to kick open the door while the creature is still getting into position. The GM could ask for an athletics check, but decides this door isn't secure enough to warrant one, and describes. You kick open the door. The light of your torch illuminates the room. You see the goblin off to the left. Another moment, and it would have been able to hide. It has a scimitar in hand. It lunges at you. Roll for initiative. In D&D 5e, when you enter combat, time changes into increments called rounds. Each round, each creature in the combat has a turn in which they can act. Certain special abilities may allow a character to take a reaction and act once per round outside of their turn. But neither our hero nor our goblin have any such relevant abilities. Turn order is determined by a d20 roll, each adding a character's dexterity bonus. Other features can add to these, but they are rare. The player, in this case, rolls a 9 for initiative. The goblin gets a 20 after his bonus, so he'll go first. In D&D, initiative is fixed after the first roll. So, for however long this fight lasts, the two will alternate turns, with the goblin acting first. On the goblin's turn, he will move up to you and make an attack with his scimitar. He rolls a 2, plus his 4, for a 6. It's obviously a miss. He'll end his turn. In D&D 5e, an attack roll looks like this. You roll a d20 and add one of your stats. Strength for most melee weapons and thrown weapons. Dex for most ranged weapon and any melee weapon with the finesse tag. Or your spellcasting ability score if you are attacking with a spell, such as Firebolt. Then you add your proficiency bonus, so long as you're proficient in the type of attack you are making. The goblin's scimitar is a finesse weapon, so it adds +2 from its dex, and +2 for its proficiency, for the +4 seen on the monster stat block. The result of the attack roll is compared to a target's armor class, AC. Armor class starts at a 10, and receives bonuses from the armor you are wearing, if you are carrying a shield, your dexterity, and some other spells and traits that can modify it. If the attack is equal to or exceeds the AC, then the attack hits and damage is dealt. Alright, the goblin lunges at me, but I jump back just in time. I'll counterattack with my sword. I roll 16 plus 3 from my strength plus 2. That's 21 total. That's got to hit for sure, right? Yes, the goblin has an AC of 15, so your 21 hits for sure. Roll your damage. The hero is wielding a longsword in one hand. This means he deals a d8 of damage, plus his strength modifier. If he used two hands, the damage would improve to a d10, but his offhand is holding his only light source. If a wizard or cleric had cast light on his sword, or he had an NPC to carry his light source for him, he'd be more effective. But he's making do on his own for now. Okay, I rolled a 2 for my damage die, plus 3 for 5. Does that kill the goblin? The goblin has 2d6 hit dice. This means the GM can roll 2d6 to determine the HP of the goblin. All 5e monster stat blocks include an average HP value, and many GMs will simply always take the average. We'll assume this goblin has the average HP of 7. Not quite. The goblin is struck across the chest. A nasty gash is made, but he avoids the worst of it for now. Now, it's the goblin's turn. Now, the GM has a choice to make. The goblin is clearly losing this fight. They could run, or they could fight to the death. D&D 5e has no specific mechanics to help the GM decide a creature's actions. The goblin, however, does have an ability called Nimble Escape, which the GM decides it should use now. The goblin jumps in pain. His eyes go wide. He slips back away, running into the darkness. He uses Nimble Escape to disengage as a bonus action, so you can't take an attack of opportunity. He then dashes, moving 60 feet and getting out of your torchlight. We'll break here for the D&D example. Hero McGoodguy will have his work cut out for him going forward. If the goblin won't engage, he'll need to find a way to corner it, or maybe use a ranged weapon to hit it from a distance. If I were the GM, unless the PC had a specific idea they wanted to try right away, I would break initiative order, at least momentarily, and return to a more narrative exploration-focused mode, until the goblin could be cornered, or another plan could be hatched. Let's move on to our next system for now. Dungeon Crawl Classics. For our initial setup, things will be the same.
Hero, the good guy, is deep in the bowels of the earth, a torch in his left hand to light his way, and a sword drawn in his right to protect himself from whatever lurks in the darkness. There is a goblin somewhere in the dark of this burrow that has attacked the local villagers, and Hero, the good guy, is the only one brave enough to slay it. Up ahead, you see a wooden door on the right side. The hallway continues beyond it. What do you do? I creep up to the door, and I listen to what's on the other side.
As before, the GM has decided that the light of the torch has given away Hero's approach, so the goblin cannot be surprised. The goblin is going to try and hide and ambush the hero. Dungeon Crawl Classics does not have skill proficiencies in the way that D&D does. Thief class characters do have some special abilities that work similar to skills, but in general, they are not a thing. The GM should simply allow characters to accomplish things that seem plausible for them based on their class or background, but the system does allow for ability checks in situations where an outcome is uncertain, an action is opposed, or luck checks where the outcome is outside of the player character's hands. A character is more likely to succeed on these checks if they have a relevant occupation from their background. In this case, according to the book, listening is a luck check, because whether or not the hero can hear the goblin is entirely up to whether or not the goblin makes a sound that can be heard. To make a luck check, the player rolls a d20, and wants to roll a number equal or less than their luck attribute. Listening is a luck check, so I'm going to roll behind the screen so you don't know what you rolled. What is your luck attribute again? Okay. The GM rolls a 12 and tells the player, "You don't hear anything. Everything seems silent ahead." The player, in this case, does not know if they failed the check, or if they succeeded, but there was nothing to hear. Alright, sword at the ready, I'm going to push the door open. As you push open the door, you don't immediately see anything. Entering the room, however, the goblin leaps at you from your side. You're surprised. In Dungeon Crawl Classics, surprise is gained by a party if the ones they are attacking are not aware of their presence. Being aware of an opponent means seeing them, making a check to hear them approach, or otherwise noticing them through magical or mundane means. Simply being on guard is not sufficient to avoid surprise. Since the goblin was hiding in a shadowy room, and the player already failed their check to hear them, the GM decides they are surprised. Goblins are normally cowardly, but this one has the drop on the player, and thus potentially an advantage. So he takes his chances. Surprised characters do not act in the first round, so the GM goes ahead and makes the goblin's attack roll. The goblin lunges at you from the shadows and tries to slice you in the side with his scimitar. He rolls a 6. That's a miss. Caught off guard, your warrior instincts kick in, and you barely manage to avoid a deadly blow. Now, we'll roll for initiative. Initiative in DCC is similar to 5e. All characters roll a die and add their agility modifier. Higher goes first. A few alterations. Characters wielding heavy two-handed weapons roll a d10 instead of a d20 for initiative, being more likely to go second. Warriors, such as Hero McGoodguy, get to add their level to the check. In this case, the Goblin rolls a 17, minus 1 for his modifier, for a 16, whereas Hero rolls a 16, plus 1 for his warrior level, getting a 17. Hero, your training kicks in. You have the initiative. Okay. The Goblin will be much less dangerous without their weapon, so I bring my sword to bear, and I'm going to try and knock their weapon away. In Dungeon Crawl Classics, warriors and dwarves have a feature called Mighty Deeds of Arms. Whenever they make an attack, they can declare a mighty deed as part of that attack, which has no cost for them to do so, and may allow them to alter the tactical situation, doing things such as disarming a foe, breaking a monster's natural weapon, like slicing off the stinger of a giant scorpion, pushing a foe off a ledge, knocking someone prone, blinding a foe, really whatever the player can think of and describe as some feat of martial prowess. The feat is accomplished if the attack both hits the foe and the deeds die comes up a 3 or higher. At level 1, the deeds die is a 1d3, but it increases in size as the warrior character levels. I rolled an 11, plus 1 for my strength. My deeds die is a 2, so that's 14 to hit. The goblin is wearing leather armor, so that's AC 12. That's a hit. Roll for damage. I rolled a 3, plus my deeds die to damage, so that's 5, plus my strength mod, so that's 6 damage total. That will get him. How do you want to do this? I bring in my sword, and I slice him in the arm, and when he's disarmed, I swing again and sever his neck. The GM knows that a goblin has a hit die of 1d6 minus 1, so this goblin is definitely dead. This would be a typical attack roll. Some other possible outcomes. If the deeds die had come up a 3, and the attack hit, but the damage roll had not been sufficient to kill the goblin, then the player would have disarmed the foe as they described, forcing them to either use an action to pick up their weapon, or use their less dangerous natural weapons, or probably flee. In DCC, monsters all have a morale stat that they use to make a morale check whenever they begin to lose. If this goblin had allies, they would make a morale check after witnessing the death of their first companion. Any who fail the check would have to flee the combat. The last thing I want to show off with DCC is the critical hit system. In DCC, when you roll a critical hit, that is a roll of 19 or 20 for a first level warrior, you roll a die, modified by your luck modifier, on a special table. The table and the die size vary by class. For a first level warrior, we are looking at a D12 on critical hit table 3. If we go back and change hero's D20 roll from an 11 to a 19 or a 20, we would then roll a D12 on the critical hit die. I have rolled a 6, meaning he would have gotten the result, brutal strike to the torso. Inflict plus 1d8 damage with this strike, and the foe suffers multiple broken ribs. This goblin is not just dead. He's been cut clean in half. Now we move on to my favorite RPG system. The bias is admittedly real. GURPS, the generic universal role-playing system. GURPS doesn't have levels or classes the way D&D 5e or DCC do, but instead is a point-buy-based system. As such, I have prepared a 100-point warrior. This is a point value that is a little less than what I typically start a campaign at, but it is in the range that the GURPS basic set describes as exceptional individuals who, with a little experience, could become full-time adventurers. So, this is probably close to a first-level warrior. If I was making a 150 or 200-point character, I would probably actually spend most of the additional points on more broad adventuring skills or wealth for better equipment. So this feels right to me for being a first-level character. Once more, we'll have the same setup. But before we go in, there is one distinction. GURPS has more restrictive encumbrance rules than we've seen before. Hero McGoodguy knows that carrying his backpack and his shield takes him from no encumbrance to light encumbrance, which will result in his dodge score, along with his stealth, climbing, and swimming skills being at a -1 penalty. And perhaps more pressingly, his move is reduced from 6 to 4. Since he can't carry a torch and his shield in the same hand anyway, he leaves it with his backpack of camping supplies hidden safely outside the dungeon. For the Goblin, we'll be using the stats for a Goblin Warrior from the Poor Creature catalog, a fan-made supplement with many stats for classic fantasy monsters. Now, we'll begin the same as before.
Hero McGoodguy is deep in the bowels of the earth, a torch in his left hand to light his way, and a sword drawn in his right to protect himself from whatever lurks in the darkness. There is a goblin somewhere in the dark of this burrow that has attacked the local villagers, and Hero McGoodguy is the only one brave enough to slay it. Up ahead, you see a wooden door on the right side. The hallway continues beyond it. What do you do? I creep up to the door, and I listen to what's on the other side.
As before, this goblin has dark vision and is trying to ambush the hero. He sees the torchlight from under the door and won't be surprised. The goblin tries to move silently into a hidden position inside the room. The GM will roll the goblin's stealth skill. Checks in GURPS involve rolling 3d6 and trying to roll equal or less than your effective skill number. The goblin has a 10 stealth and the advantage Silence 1, giving him a +1 to stealth checks to move silently. He has an effective 11 skill then to avoid being heard. The GM rolls 3d6 and gets a 9. This is less than 11 and therefore a success. If Hero hadn't stopped to actively listen at the door, this success would be enough to do it quietly. But since Hero is actively listening, this becomes a quick contest against the hero's perception attribute. The goblin rolled a 9 against 11. That's a success by 2. Hero needs to roll better than that to hear the goblin. The GM rolls for Hero against his perception of 9 and rolls a 3, a critical success. Very lucky break. The GM tells Hero that he hears a goblin moving around in the next room. You hear something moving on the other side of the door. Pitter-patter of small feet on a stone floor, moving towards the left side of the room. Something is on the other side of the door, and it knows you are here. I can't let him get away. I push open the door. As you open the door, you find the skulking goblin, illuminated by the torchlight. He has a short sword, and is wearing leather armor on his body and his arms, and a leather helmet. The illuminated goblin shouts and prepares to attack. He's currently 3 yards away. Since the goblin did not hide successfully, surprise does not apply. If the goblin had succeeded, Hero would be partially surprised. Not totally surprised, because both he is proceeding cautiously and expects danger, but he also possesses the combat reflexes advantage. If he was partially surprised, he would have the mental stun condition, causing him to miss turns and suffer defense penalties until he recovered. There is no need to roll initiative, since turn order is fixed in GURPS based on the character's basic speed attribute. Hero has a 6, and the goblin has a 5.25. So Hero will always get to act before an ordinary goblin warrior. GURPS takes a more simulationist approach to combat than D&D, which you will see in this example. Part of this approach is a much shorter time frame. In D&D and many similar systems, a round is typically meant to represent between 6 and 10 seconds, depending on the game. Characters can typically move, ready a weapon, make an attack, cast a spell, or some other meaningful action, all in one turn. Some systems, like D&D 5e, even have additional smaller actions called bonus actions or minor actions that one can do alongside a main action. In GURPS, a round is 1 second. All you get is a single maneuver on your turn. If you want to do multiple things at once, like move and attack, you are typically looking at steep penalties. Many maneuvers, however, do allow the character to make a single step, 1 yard of movement, before or after their actions. He's 3 yards away? My sword has only reached 1, so I'd have to make a move and attack to attack him first. But I'd be rolling against 9 to hit. I think I'll wait and see if he comes to me. I put my sword forward and I approach. I'm going to all-out defense, increased parry, and step towards the goblin. Okay, so after your step, he's standing 2 yards away. He's going to step closer, so his own short sword is already ready. He's now 1 yard away, has reached 1 weapon, so he can attack. The goblin is smaller than you, size modifier -1 compared to your size modifier 0, so that gives him a +1 for attacking a larger target. His skill is at 11, so with a +1, he is rolling against a 12. Okay, that is, I rolled 12 on the 3d6, so that is a success. Since he's not a skilled combatant and I didn't specify a hit location, I'm going to roll one at random. Roll 3d6, and I get, ooh, that's a 4. So that is the skull hit location. He jumps up into the air and swings down at your head. Oh no, That's really bad. I could take a lot of damage, and I didn't buy a helmet. You didn't buy a helmet? I only had so much cash, and I focused on having good body armor to protect my vitals. Makes sense, but it could cost you. You do still get your defense roll, and don't forget you did make an all-out defense. Right, this is a melee attack, so I can parry or dodge. I can't block because I didn't bring my shield. My parry is an 11, but I took all-out defense increased parry last turn, so I get +2 for that for 13. That's good, but a hit to the skull could end me in a moment. Is there anything I can do to improve that, GM? Yes. Once per round, you can retreat from an attack. You step back 1 yard, and you get a +1 on a parry or a +3 on the dodge. So that would put you up to a 14. Additionally, if the optional rule, extra effort in combat, is in play, then Hero could spend a fatigue point for an additional +2 to his defense. But this is a cinematic optional rule and not appropriate in all campaigns. But it is a good option if the GM wants to provide the PCs a little more heroic plot armor. Today, though, Hero is on his own skill. Okay, so I'm going to roll against a 14 then. You can choose to take a penalty on your parry if you want to try a riposte to make it easier to get him back on your next turn. Maybe if he was going to hit me where my armor is, but not when my head is on the line. 9. I parry his blow with my sword. Should have made that riposte. Right. Well, now it's my turn, you little bastard. Yep. Now, he's small, so you have a -1 to hit him. Yeah. I've got skill 14 with a broadsword. With the -1, I'm rolling against a 13. What's his armor like again? He's got a leather helmet. Of course he does. And leather body armor that covers his torso and his arms. What about his weapon? Can I try and disarm him? He's using a short sword, so it'll be hard to hit, but you can try. It's -4 to hit the sword, and an additional -2 to make a disarm attempt. You can learn the disarm technique in the future to be better at this. Okay. I'm a lot stronger than him, though, so if I land the hit, I'll have a good chance of disarming him. But -6 is a big penalty. You can make it a telegraphed attack. This gives you +4 to hit, but gives him a +2 to defend. I'll do that. He's not very skilled, so this might work. 14 skill, -6 to disarm, +4 for telegraphing. I'm rolling against 12. Let's see. Another 9. That's a hit. A potential hit. He still gets a defense roll. He can dodge or parry the attack to negate it. His parry is an 8, and with the +2 you gave him from the telegraphed attack, he's rolling against a 10. 50-50 odds. Let's see. 14. That's a failure. You hit, you push his weapon. Final step of a disarm is an opposed skill roll. You roll broadsword, he rolls his weapon skill. You can each choose to use strength instead of dex for this roll if it's better. My strength is a 12, my dex is 11, so I'll use strength. That makes my effective skill a 15. I roll a 10, that's success by 5. He'll stick with dex. His roll is an 11. 13, that's a failure. You successfully disarm him. His short sword flies 1 yard in a random direction. It lands, we'll say, in your front arc here to the left. Nice. I've got him now. But it is his turn now. First things first, he has the cowardice disadvantage. So I'm going to have him make a self-control roll. At -5, because it's clearly a life or death situation. Interesting. He rolled a 6. Even with the -5, that's a success. He can act as he likes. I guess he knows that running won't save him now. He'll step into the hex where his sword was dropped, keeping you in the center of his front arc. And he will change posture to kneeling so he can pick up his sword next turn. Time to finish him. He's kneeling, right? What does that mean again? A couple of things. 1, he has a -2 on any defense rolls. And 2, since you're above him, you have a +1 to hit his skull, face, eyes, or neck. Then I'm going to try and hit him in the skull as hard as possible. 14 skill, -7 for skull, -1 for his small size. I'm going to do another telegraphed attack, so that's +4, +1 for him kneeling. That would make it an 11 to hit. He still needs to ready his weapon, so I'm going to go all out strong to make sure that this kills him if it hits. Alright, but you will have no defense rolls until your next turn if you choose to go all out. I know, but I don't think he can really hurt me without his weapon. And if I miss by 1, I'll still hit the torso, which should hit him pretty badly. Okay, roll it. Okay, rolled. For a 11 exactly. That's lucky. Okay, defense roll. He's got an 8 dodge, and the -2 and the +2 cancel out, so it's against an 8. Ooh, close, but that's a 9. That still fails, so roll for damage. D6 +3 normally, with another +2 from the all-out strong. Rolling, I get 5 + 5 is 10 slashing damage to the skull. Oof, that is not good for him. His skull gives 2 points of DR, and his helmet gives another 2. So that's 4 DR total. 10 damage rolled -4 is 6 penetrating damage. You hit the skull, so any damage that gets through damage reduction is multiplied by 4. That is 24 injury. That takes him from 7 HP to -17. Yeah, he's dead. At this point, if the GM thought the Goblin was important enough to warrant the full rules for death and dying, the Goblin would need to make a death check, a health roll, at each negative multiple of their maximum hit points. So, one at -7 hit points, a second one at -14, and the third one not until -21. So this wound should force 2 immediate death checks. If the Goblin does not die outright from these checks, it would then make a health check for a major wound, with a -10 penalty for the major wound being to the skull. Any failure results in knockdown and stunning, and a failure by 5 or more would indicate that the Goblin goes unconscious, very likely when rolling at a -10. And if that roll was made, the Goblin would also have to roll health every turn in order to avoid passing out at this extreme level of injury. The GM decides, rightfully in this case, that the Goblin is not important enough to worry about the slim possibility of it continuing to fight and threaten Hero, and Hero intends to finish it off if it is still alive, so the GM calls the combat and declares the Goblin dead. Now, GURPS was differentiated from the D20 systems by having an increased level of detail, making distinctions mechanically about details like hit location, what parts of your body are armored, how exactly you make your attack, telegraphing versus normal versus a deceptive, which we didn't see but works in the reverse of telegraphing. The other things we didn't get to show off, like attacking from different sides, I hope to make future videos about. Making a sneak attack in GURPS, for example, is a lot of fun. But now, we move on to something that goes in a different direction. The Powered by the Apocalypse system, Dungeon World. I don't have time in this video to go into great detail on the fiction-first philosophy of PBTA games, so I hope that this play example will showcase it to an extent. If you want to see a greater examination of PBTA-style games and their play philosophies, please leave a comment below, as I would love to go over that in the future if there's interest. For now, for this, we'll start off the same as before. Hero will be using the Fighter playbook. Good and human, if it matters, first level. As a fighter, he must choose a signature weapon. We'll say it's a sword, close range, and for the enhancements, it will have sharp, +2 piercing, and serrated edges, +1 damage.
Hero, the good guy, is deep in the bowels of the earth, a torch in his left hand to light his way, and a sword drawn in his right to protect himself from whatever lurks in the darkness. There is a goblin somewhere in the dark of this burrow that has attacked the local villagers, and Hero, the good guy, is the only one brave enough to slay it. Up ahead, you see a wooden door on the right side. The hallway continues beyond it. What do you do? I creep up to the door, and I listen to what's on the other side.
Well, it seems to me that you are studying a situation. So that would trigger the Discern Realities move. Now, if you agree, go ahead and roll 2d6 plus your Wisdom modifier. Yeah, that sounds right. With my bonus, that's an 8, right in the 7 to 9 range, so I get to pick one question from the list. What should I be on the lookout for? You can hear something shuffling around, probably the Goblin, trying to ambush you. As a result of your move, you get +1 forward if you act on this information. What do you do? Alright. On guard, push open the door. As you do so, the Goblin charges, wielding a spear. It rushes forward and jabs the weapon at you as you open the door. What do you do? Knowing he was coming and ready for it, I'm going to pull back behind the door and then shove it open into the charging Goblin, knock him off balance. A bold strategy. You're defying danger with strength, I think. So go ahead and roll that. Alright. I rolled 6 plus 2 strength plus 1 forward from the Discern Realities. That is a 9 total. A 7 to 9 is a partial success, often meaning some compromise or cost to the success. On the move Defy Danger, it says you stumble, hesitate, or flinch. The GM will offer you a worse outcome, a hard bargain, or an ugly choice. In that case, I think since your hands are full, you'll have to make a choice. Either you can't get the door closed in time and you'll take some damage, or you have to drop something, either your torch or your sword. Oh man. Well, I can't drop my torch. If that goes out, I'll be blind in the dark. But my sword is special. So you want to take the damage? Fine. I'll drop my sword. So, seeing the Goblin charge, you instinctively drop your sword and grab the door handle. You close the door just as he rushes forward, and then you slam it open again, sending the Goblin flailing backwards. Your sword is on the ground, but he still has his spear, though he is off balance. You don't have a weapon. What do you do? Oh, I'm not entirely disarmed. I still have my torch. I'll use it like a club and strike at the Goblin. Ah, right. Well, it isn't built as a weapon, so I'll say it's a -1 damage. But yeah, in that case, this is a hack and slash. As you move to attack him in melee combat, roll plus strength. Okay, rolled 5, plus 2 strength is a 7, barely a partial success. On a partial success, you will deal damage, but you will also suffer an attack in return. Go ahead and roll your damage. As a fighter, my damage die is a d10, -1 for the improvised weapon. I roll 8 -1, 7 damage. Right. So you will kill the Goblin, but you'll also take 3 damage in the process. What does that look like? I charge forward and swing at the Goblin, striking him across the face. He cries out in pain from the fire, and then stabs with his spear. I avoid the worst of it, taking a cut on the leg, before I strike him once more with the torch. As he cries out in pain and falls, his screams echo deeper into the burrow. You hear more of them are coming. What do you do? I go get my sword and ready for the rest of the horde. And that's where we'll end things for today. I hope some of these systems have intrigued you enough to go out and learn more about them. I do plan to do part 2 of this series with a few more systems, Fate Core, Savage Worlds, and maybe Torchbearer. If there are other systems you think I should include, tell me in the comments below. For now though, thank you for watching. I've got more TTRPG content coming, so please subscribe to my channel for more, hit the bell, do the like, do the comments, you know how YouTube works. And specifically, leave a comment on any other video topics you would like to see. Would you like me... What would you like to see? Would you like to see reviews of non-D&D TTRPG systems? Would you like GMing advice videos? Are you looking for breakdowns on different types of RPG systems in general, like PBTA versus Fate versus D20 versus point die, or whatever sort of system you might imagine. I'm also a professional game master as well. This is how I pay my bills. So if you want to play a game with me, you can check out my Start Playing page in the description. I don't know if I'll have any games available for sign up at the time you're watching this video, but you can check it out there, or send me a message on Start Playing if you'd like to be notified as soon as I have a new game with open slots. All my links are in the description below. Thank you for watching. Have a good night.